if you want to take a stack of paper and turn it into a stack of cards, I have a brand new template for you today. Hi, my name is Jess from JessCrafts.com, and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty supplies and time. So today I have 6x8 paper busting template for slimline cards number 5. So that means there's 4 other ones that show you specifically how to take 6x8 paper and turn it into slimline cards, but I also have templates for 6x6 paper into slimline cards or 6x8 paper into A2 cards. So I have like lots of different combinations, but like there's 6x6 for A2, 12x12 for A2. So if this is the first video you've come across, there's 5x7 card ones. Like there's a lot of different combinations of card sizes and pattern paper sizes on my website. But today, 6x8 paper, 12x slimline cards. And I want to remember to say this at some point in the video. So a question I get asked a lot is, what do you do for envelopes for slimline cards? And you can get like those like standard, I think they call like business envelopes that you like put like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper folded like into thirds. You know, you could put bills in them. I'm trying to think like they're kind of standard letter size in a way. So those envelopes, I believe they fit these, but they're kind of big. But honestly, for me, I usually just like slimline cards are something that I'm either going to hand to somebody, like maybe part of a gift, or there are organizations that you can donate to that accept a variety of card sizes and do not request envelopes. And so in that case, they don't need or want envelopes for the slimline cards, and so I'll donate there. And there'll be a link in the video description, and it's always at the top of my website, jesscrafts.com, and they will be a list of organizations that you can donate your cards to. So I just wanted to address that since that is a frequently asked question. All right, 6x8 spooky pattern paper. You can do whatever theme you want. I'm gonna do Halloween today. I love Halloween. It's kind of getting crisp here. It's starting to feel like fall, so I wanna do some Halloween crafting. This spooky 6x8 paper collection came with these 2x2 little like cut-aparts is what I tend to call them. So on the back, there's a whole other patterned paper, but I wanted to make a set of cards with these, and there are 12 of them, so I was like, well, I'm gonna make 12 cards. This template makes 2 cards per sheet of pattern paper with no pattern paper scraps. So each 6x8 inch paper makes 2 cards. I need to make 12, so I need to pick 6. I also made myself 6 card bases, 6 slim lines. I decided to go with colored card bases today because then I don't have to do as many mats, and just to make it fun, because like when I started cutting up and folding these, I was like, oh, I love these really, really bright colors, and that was inspired by this collection. So I think this ghost paper could be really cute, and I'm trying to decide, do I want to go with like 6 different patterned papers and make like, a lot of different kinds of cards, or do I pick the same one and just, once I make a decision, I can make it multiple times? But I mean, it's really fun. Like part of I like pattern paper because I like patterns. Some organizations ask for like less spooky images though. So that could be something that you might need to take into account. Like there may be certain imagery that they prefer not to receive. So I think maybe we should just do 6 different patterns, because I already found 6 that I like this collection. I'll do a quick flip through. I think this might represent a good majority of the patterns that are part of this collection. I have this one. I've done a video on this, specifically taking advantage of like that really cool set of motifs that are down the center. I don't know if motifs is the right word, but anyway. So let's talk about how to cut one piece of pattern paper. I'm not gonna like walk you through the cutting of every single sheet because you'll understand from the template, and the template has measurements. So first you take the 6x8 piece of pattern paper and you cut it in half to be 3x8 inches. And then you're gonna take this 3x8 inch piece is going to make 1 card. You're going to need 2 2-inch pieces, one for the top, one for the bottom, and a 3x4 inch for the center. So you want to think about which, if you're using double-sided paper, which I am, you will want to think about which side you want for this main focal point. Here, I'm actually going to make it the like more boring side, which is the solid in this case. And I'm going to use the more decorative side for the top and bottom because I know I'm going to be able to put one of these little cute cut apart pieces on it. And so you want to think about where is your 4-inch chunk going to be. So if you are going to make that your prominent piece, you'll want to know that. Or you can just cut it at the 2 inches and the 2 inches. If you are using single-sided paper, I might suggest, or I would suggest, but I don't think you have to, cut 2 inches from the top, 4 inches from the center, 2 inches from the bottom, which is a little bit different than my sketch shows it. My sketch shows the 2-inch things at the bottom. And that's partly because sometimes I have found a lot of like 6x8 paper that has like 3x4 cut aparts. So anyway, just things that you might want to consider before you start chopping up your paper. In this case, I'm not particularly concerned because I am using double-sided paper. So this can be the top of the card, the bottom of the card, the in-between on the card. And it doesn't really matter if it's cohesive from the top to the bottom. And we're gonna make it look like one long piece of paper in the back, but it's really, there's gonna be a big old gap there. And so what you're gonna do is keep going through all your papers. And honestly, like my paper trimmer can cut a couple of different papers at one time. So especially since I'm not terribly concerned. And this does work with directional pattern paper. So if your paper, like my ghosts, have a clear top and bottom, like all the ghost heads are on one end, don't worry, this works for that. I find most 6x8 patterned paper has a top on the like short side. So most directional 6x8 paper is in this direction. And therefore I designed all of my 6x8 for slim lines to accommodate for that. And then, so yeah, there's actually a whole pack of 10 in my Etsy shop, but they'll be released over time here at the YouTube channel. So anyway, we'll just keep going, cutting all our patterned paper in that way so that we have all the pieces we need for the 12 cards that we're going to make today. Then this 6x8 sheet with all these little 2x2 cut aparts, we are just gonna cut them at their 2-inch marks. And I would generally suggest, rather than trying to measure exactly 2 inches, just looking at the lines that you're trying to cut along. And sometimes I think it's easier to cut with scissors when you're getting to a smaller bit like this here, but you do whatever works well for you. I find that I often wind up cleaning them up with scissors as well. Sometimes because I'm just not being very careful, and other times just because, I mean, I don't know, mistakes happen. So there's like a tiny bit of yellow at the top of this one. You don't have to address that, but you could just trim that off with a scissor. And we'll keep going till we cut all of those. 4 slimline card bases. When I say slimline card, I mean a piece of cardstock that is 7 by 8.5, folded in half so that it's 3.5 by 8.5. That's the slimline size that I've seen most often and that I use. When I cut that from an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock, I am left with a 4 by 8.5 inch piece. This particular sketch does tell you how to cut mats for all of the patterned paper pieces. I think what I'm going to do today though is just cut mats for this centerpiece because I am using colored backgrounds. So what I decided to do is I'm going to take this 4-inch scrap and use a good chunk of it like immediately. So I'm going to cut it to 3 1/4. Then I'm going to cut it in half to 4 1/4. And I have 2 that are perfectly sized for those 3x4s. I probably wouldn't put orange on orange, but just so you kind of see. Yeah, I'll flip it over so you can see more what it looks like. So there's that border. And so I'm going to ultimately cut 12 of those. So I cut 12 pieces of 8.5 by 11 cardstock. I'm going to use 6 of the scraps to cut what I need for these. But if you're making just one card, you will have most of what you need for the mats here on the side because you're going to be able to cut the one 3x4 and then 3x2, but you're not going to have enough room for the other 3x2 that you need. There is a way to get really close with how the card works, and I want to show that to you just for those of you who are like, you know, maybe want to eliminate some cardstock scraps. So here's the scrap that's left over when I cut the card base. I cut it to 3 1/4. I have this, I believe, 3/4 inch strip left. I'm not going to deal with that right now, but I'm going to cut the 4 1/4 inch piece. Okay, now this is 4 1/4. My mats, it calls for 2 1/4 inch mats, but part of the mat is going to be tucked under. So if you want, you can take your mat and cut it out of this. And so you're going to cut it, instead of to 2 1/4, you're going to cut it to 2 1/8. So you're just going to cut this in half again. And you're going to use these as your mats, even though they're not exact. They won't like, they're not exactly what I say to cut. You won't really notice the difference. And I'm going to show you how I do that, how I would assemble a card with that in mind. So we have this spooky side, and then this is the other side of that same patterned paper. So to keep things easy and not have to worry too much about how things coordinate, like the designer kind of picked that these two things went together. I'm going to put these on the pink mats, and then I'll put them onto the orange card base. So I'll center this one, because this one you're going to see the whole mat. This one, the mats are going to be tucked under. And so it might even be helpful if I glue the mats down first, so you kind of see what I mean. But I always like, if there's a way I can show you how to do something really efficiently, I try to take some time to point it out. Okay, so, and this means that because one piece of cardstock produces enough for the mats and the card base, you wouldn't have any scraps as long as you're alternating, because I probably wouldn't put the same color mats as the color cardstock. So like, I wouldn't cut orange mats to put on an orange card base, but because it makes 2 cards, I can cut one orange and one pink and mix them up or something like that. So hopefully this all makes sense. So I've placed them down, giving like an equal border all around the top and bottom. And then as you can see, this is going to cover that up a little bit. I think I might have like squeezed those too far out to the borders. We'll see. I might have an imprecise cut here. So then I'm going to take this piece of pattern paper and I'm going to again center it such that there's an even border all around the sides, and I'm not going to worry that this is overlapping and this doesn't quite make sense here, because it doesn't matter. We're covering that up in our next step, and we'll do the same thing at the bottom. And then you could take this piece, add some adhesive to the back. One thing you could do with that extra scrap if you want, if you have especially thick cardstock, sometimes it is nice to like prop up this center piece a little bit so that it doesn't like bump down. But in this case, I don't think it really matters because there's so little room of overlap. So I'm just gonna line it up such that the edges of the mats are lined up at the top and bottom of the card and press it down. But you could put the cardstock under there. The other thing I would do with this cardstock scrap is put some adhesive on it. You actually don't. You only need to put adhesive on half of it. Fold it over, and now I have some fake foam tape that I could use to pop something else up. And that is how I would create this card with as little scrap as possible. So I picked out these little 2x2 cut-aparts, cut them apart, and some of them don't have sentiments on them. I am not the kind of person who believes you need a sentiment on a card. I feel like it's pretty obvious that these are going to be Halloween cards. I don't have to write Happy Halloween on them. Plus, I might write that on the inside anyway. Or I might put some jokes that you can find at jesscrafts.com. I do have jokes for like every holiday and all kinds of like other just like fun themes. I have card inserts you can put inside your card. But anyway, you know, they're going to get the Happy Halloween message at some point. But some of these do have sentiments right on them, and that's great. I don't even know that spooky is a sentiment, but I'm not going to put any more words on that, certainly. But some of them don't. And then what I would probably do, I like to have some stamps in my collection that are just like tiny little words. So I have some sets here from scrapbook.com that have some smaller words and some larger sentiments. I do appreciate that they do kind of a good mix of that. They do a good mix of like small stamps and larger stamps and stuff, because sometimes you need a focal point stamp and sometimes you need an accessory stamp. And anyway, so I thought I could pull in some stamps from these and think about like, is there one stamp I could stamp on a bunch of them? Because this Hey Pumpkin, sometimes I like to do something like more personalized like that, right? Like, oh, this is a pumpkin card, so stamping a pumpkin sentiment would be fun because, you know, why not match the sentiment, keep it punny, that kind of thing. Or if you're really going for like speed, because maybe you're working on your Christmas cards and you want this to go a little bit faster and you need some sentiments, then maybe stamping the same, you know, joy to the world or whatever sentiment is better for you. But that's something that I would do, or I would just not put any sentiments at all on these. Then the other thing is, I think that I could put some of these directly onto the patterned paper. Like we talked about with this ghost paper, I'm going to use the other side. So I could put any number of these right on to this patterned paper with no mat or anything around them, and it's going to look just fine. But there's going to be other times when I maybe have like a busier patterned paper. Like this one has, not this is terribly busy, but it has spider webs on one side and spiders on the other. So if I wanted to maybe pull in this spider one, maybe it would be nice if there was a mat. I actually kind of like it without the mat. I should have thought more about this. I'm like, ooh, do I actually have one that I care about whether there's a mat on it? This one maybe. Plaid, candy corn. If I pick certain ones, they're gonna look totally fine. Other ones might get a little bit lost, like this white on white. So things you can do is you could put mats on them so that white on white is no longer a problem because there's a black mat between them. Or you could just kind of think, okay, I have this one that says, you know, that has mostly white around it. Let me go find some of my darker papers. Like maybe I can pair it with the skeleton or the spooky eyes or something so that I don't have to worry as much about it. But if you do need to cut mats for these, I just tend to keep my mats the same. So since it's a 1/4 inch bigger for the 3x4s, I would do a 1/4 inch bigger and do these 2x2s as 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. So using the method described, I have made 12 slimline cards with no pattern paper scraps and very little in terms of cardstock scraps. All I have left. This is great for fake foam tape. It's great for stamping sentiments. If you enjoyed this method of card making, where we're really just focusing in on getting some cards made and not using a lot of supplies, you might enjoy the stress-free card making summit that is coming up soon. So if you're catching this as it was published in September of 2024, there's a stress-free card making summit. It is a free event. I will be teaching on using 12x12 patterned paper and 5 supplies or less to create A2 cards. So you can get that free ticket with the link in the video description. There is upgrade options with some additional things that you would get, but you can watch the presentation the first 24 hours. You get the free paper busting exclusive template. That's not part of the paid upgrade. So you just check that out. It is an affiliate advertising link. I am an instructor. I do benefit from people doing that upgrade, but I just really encourage you to check out the free version of the summit because I think that you will like it. If you found this video helpful, here's another video where you can find more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know you like this video with a share to your crafty community, subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template or tutorial, and check the video description for product links. See you in the next video.